Parents are victimized by the system that makes a profit for holding children longer and bonuses for not returning children to their parents. That caseworkers and social workers are very often guilty of fraud. They withhold and destroy evidence. They fabricate evidence, and they seek to terminate parental rights unnecessarily. However, when charges are made against Child Protective Services, the charges are ignored. That the separation of families and snatching of children is growing as a business because local governments have grown accustomed to having these taxpayer dollars to balance their ever-expanding budget. That Child Protective Services and juvenile court can always hide behind a confidentiality clause in order to protect their decisions and make the funds flowing. There should be open records and court watches. Look who is being paid. There are state employees, lawyers, court investigators, guardian ad litems, court personnel, and judges. There are psychologists and psychiatrists, counselors, caseworkers, therapists, foster parents, adoptive parents, and on and on. All are looking to the children in state custody to provide job security. Parents do not realize that the social workers are the glue that hold the system together. That funds, the court-appointed attorneys, and the multiple other jobs, including systems, psychiatrists, therapists, their own attorneys, and others. That the Adoption and the Safe Families Act, set in motion first in 1974 by Walter Mondale and later in 1997 by President Bill Clinton, offered cash bonuses to the states for every child they adopted out for foster care. In order to receive the adoption incentive bonuses, local Child Protective Services needed more children. They must have merchandise, children, that sells protective services. And you must have plenty so the buyer can choose. Some counties are known to give $4,000 to $6,000 bonus for each child adopted out to strangers, and an additional $2,000 for a special needs child. Employees work to keep the federal dollars flowing. State departments of human resource and affiliates are given a baseline number of expected adoptions based on population. For every child DHR and CPS can get adopted, there is the bonus of $4,000 or maybe $6,000. But that is only the beginning figure in the formula in which each bonus is multiplied by the percentage that the state has managed to exceed its baseline adoption number. Therefore, states and local communities work hard to reach their goals for increased numbers of adoptions for children in foster care. That there is double dipping. The funding continues as long as the child is out of the home. There is funding for foster care, then when a child is placed with a new family. Then adoption bonus funds are available. When a child is placed in a mental health facility and is on 16 drugs per day, like 2 children of a constituent of mine, more funds are involved, and so is Medicaid. As you can see, this program is ordered from the very top and run by Health and Human Resources. This is why victims of CPS get no help from their legislators. It expands why my bill, Senate Bill 415, suffered such defeat in the Judicial Committee, why I was cut off at every junction. Legislators and governors must remember who funds their paychecks. We, the people. That there are no financial resources and no real drive to unite a family and help keep them together or provide effective care. That the incentive for social workers to return children to their parents quickly after taking them has disappeared, and who in protective services will step up to the plate and say, this must end? No one, because they are all in the system together. And a system with no leader and no clear policies will always fail the children. Just look at the waste in government that is forced upon the taxpayer. That the policy manual is considered the last word for CPS, DFCS, DHS, and others. However, it is too long, too confusing, poorly written, and does not take the law into consideration. that if the lives of children were improved by removing them from their homes, there might be a greater need for protective services. But today, children are not safer. Children of whom I am aware have been raped and impregnated in foster care. It is a known fact that children are in much more danger in foster care than they are in their own home, even though home may not be perfect. That some parents are even told if they want to see their children or grandchildren, they must divorce their spouse. Many who are underprivileged, feeling they have no option, will divorce and then just continue to live together. This is an anti-family policy, but parents will do anything to get their children home with them. However, when the parents cooperate with Child Protective Services, their behavior is interpreted as guilt when nothing could be further from the truth. Fathers, non-custodial parents, I must add, are oftentimes treated as criminals without access to visit or even see their own children, and have children support payments strangling the very life out of them. That the Foster Parents Bill of Rights does not stress that a foster parent is there temporarily to care for a child until the child can be returned home. Many foster parents today use the Foster Parent Bill of Rights as a means to hire a lawyer and seek to adopt a child placed in their care from the real parents, who are desperately trying to get their child home and out of the system. Recently in Atlanta, a young couple learning to be new parents and loving it were told that because of an anonymous complaint, their daughter would be taken into custody by the state DFCS. The couple was devastated and then was required by DFCS to take parenting classes, alcohol counseling, and psychological evaluations if they wanted to get their child back. All of the courses cost money, for which most parents are required to pay. While in their anxiety and turmoil to get their child home, the baby was left for hours in a car to die, in the heat, in her car seat, by a foster parent who forgot about the child. This should never have happened. It is tragic. In many cases, after the parents have jumped through all the hoops, they still do not get their child. As long as the child is not returned, there is money for the agency, for foster parents, for adoptive parents, and for the state you live in. The tax dollars are being used to keep this gigantic system afloat, yet the victims, parents, grandparents, guardians, and especially the children are charged for the system's services. That grandparents have called from all over the state of Georgia and from other states trying to get custody of their grandchildren. CPS claims relatives are contacted, but there are many, many cases that prove differently. Grandparents who lose their grandchildren to strangers have lost their own flesh and blood. Breather there. The children lose their family heritage, and grandparents and parents too lose all connections to their heirs. That the National Center of Child Abuse and Neglect in 1998 reported that 6 times as many children died in foster care than in the general public, and that once removed to official safety, these children are far more likely to suffer abuse, including sexual molestation, than in the general population. Think what the number is today, 10 years later. That according to the California Little Hoover Commission report in 2003, 30% to 70% of the children in California group homes do not belong there and should not have been removed from their homes. My recommendations are: call for an independent audit to all state child protective services and for a federal congressional hearing on child protective services nationwide. And President Obama, we're asking for that today. To activate immediate change every day that passes means for more families and children are subject to being held hostage and their lives destroyed. Abolish the federal and state financial incentives that have turned child protective services into a business that separates families for money. Grant to parent their rights verbally and in writing. Mandate a search for family members to be given the opportunity to adopt their own relatives if children need to be removed permanently.